Hello everyone, welcome back, and today let's talk about ideation, something that is so difficult to create an innovative idea and yet be astonishing to the many audience. Today we're going to talk about how we can create a new idea and how we can formulate, in fact, using our understanding and the information available currently in the world to create an idea that is not only innovative, creative, but practical at the same time. Before we begin, I'd like to illustrate a very important concept. Whenever we identify problems, I would like all of you to pay special attention to whether that is actually the actual problem. Or in fact, there might be underlying problems that we all have to go through in order to identify the real problem. Many of the successful startups, ideas, or even businesses have identified problems more than what is existing. And in fact, we call them underlying business problems. Secondly, it is also important that you dissect the information to map out the customer journey because by the end of the day, it is all about the end users. Whether they like your product, your services, and your solution depends on whether it actually creates value and solves a problem that is consumer and customer oriented. Last but not the least, it is also important to brainstorm and not shut down an idea immediately. Most of the time in discussions, be it group projects or project-based learning, we often come into a consensus that upon 5 to 10 seconds of hearing an idea, we will shut it down because it is not practical, it has not existed before, or it is not tackling any problem. But when that happens, we might in fact be ignoring a very innovative and creative solution that could have been refined and improved, and that might as well as be a new innovation. So being open-minded, as well as being well-prepared to create something new, requires understanding, empathizing with the problem, and at the same time, collaborating and refining what you already have currently. I would like to introduce to you two main concepts. The first one, Ethnographic Understanding, and the second one, Data-Driven Approach. These two approaches are very useful when it comes to generating new idea. So what I mean by Ethnographic Understanding? I recall encountering a very senior expert from an industry, and he used to tell me this very important thing that I thought actually changed my life through its problem solving and creativity. He would say that now we're often so used to having the answers and information provided to us. But let's take a look at 100 years ago, when there's no internet, no consolidated information, or when it is not data-driven. How are problems being solved, and how are new ideas being created? Well, the answer is very simple. People would often observe. Observe cars, observe people, observe their surroundings, and understand what is happening, what can be improved, and what can be worked on. And that is what we call ethnographic understanding. By using our human brain and understanding how, in fact, we can use this little tiny cues to create something that is massive and that can also be a solution for the future is very important. So what I mean by that is truly about understanding customer problems and also having all these unidentified problems. This is back to the point that being open-minded is extremely important because if we are not open-minded, we are not really able to identify them. But nowadays, with modern technology and also different form of information, processes, and data available, there's a new approach called Data-Driven Approach where information make up majority of the solution. Because with a lot of consumer data and as well as what is available online, we're able to see all these trends and determine what might be the future solution of the future. More importantly, we can also take note of other industries, companies, and competitors, because by the end of the day, what other people doing might not be in its final form. It can always be refined, improved, and twisted to create a better idea. So here I would like to illustrate to you an example. So in various different countries and cities, fintech innovation has always been at the top of its game. So looking at Hong Kong market and how the fintech is in fact booming here, I would say that doing additional research on what other countries or cities are doing or how, in fact, it is useful for them is very important to ensure that your idea is not only practical, but it has solid support at the same time innovative. Because when we're comparing two geographical regions, I would say that the same solution cannot be implemented. let's say that the Asian culture is very different compared to American or European cultures, and having the same solution might not necessarily mean that you're innovating, but taking note of what might be missing or what can be good and brought forward or exchanged is in fact a form of innovation that is data-driven and backed by information. So understanding the scenario of startups and as well as what is currently available in the market really gives you a fundamental understanding before you try to create something entirely new. On the other hand, it also builds your foundation of knowledge and understanding to what might be existing and how you could twist it to create something new. Because most often as students, we have limited understanding and we have not worked in an industry for 20 years. Therefore, doing this part is extremely important. So, do you take note of the following when you're generating a new idea? You would ask yourself two questions. Is it innovative and is it unique? Are you incorporating elements that no one has thought of before? Are you considering variables that might be important but many companies or even projects have yet to include or even evaluate? Do you understand your targeted group carefully? Or do you understand how consumers behave, not in a sense that it is produced upon reports or even from data that is amassed from a very macro data perspective, but then one that requires ethnographic understanding to create a seamless solution? But after all, even though we propose innovative idea and being open-minded, it needs to be practical by the end of the day. When you propose something that is very difficult to be implemented, it really requires a lot of effort, and to a certain extent, it is very difficult to ensure that this idea can come to life. Therefore, it should be well verified and researched. To start with, let's take a look at the step-by-step approach. To have the understanding and as well as the knowledge before you proceed or create anything is extremely important. Then you would utilize your time on consulting reports, research, or even general data from Statistica, Bloomberg, or other sources in order to fact-check what is possible and what is not possible. Then you can also take a look at foreign examples because the world is very big. Just because such an idea, product, or service is not available in Hong Kong doesn't mean that it does not exist all around the world. For example, it might have existed in the United States 5 years ago, but no one is doing it in Hong Kong. And that might be an opportunity for the many students when it comes to creating projects or even kickstarting your own business. Do also look at your competitor examples, and when you're creating new idea, I think that industry understanding is also super important. Last but not the least, we always hope to be better. So by looking for an expert or someone that has a lot of expertise in that particular industry can help you refine your idea and tell you what's possible and what's not possible. To do so, you can either reach out to them in platforms such as LinkedIn, your professors, or even anyone around you that might be working in the industry, such as your friends or your colleagues, or even seniors from your school. Let's take a look at the second example where we talk about the property industry and also sustainability issues. So when you're thinking of sustainability, new initiatives, I think it's important for you to dissect and map out all the parts. For example, here with the black boxes, you have partnerships, expansion, operating model, ecosystem, and also long-term plan. So these might all be unrelated, but they're important points that you can map out and also dissect while having tiny little subset points below them to see what needs to be considered and what needs not to be considered. For example, when you're working on a joint venture, you would have to take note of synergy, prop tech, or even something related to your contractors. Then when you're creating your operating model, one that is different from what is existing, you might want to consider practicality, such as sustainable sourcing, your process and cost evaluation, because after all, if your company or if your project that you're working on has limited cost structures, it is not feasible for them to build a spaceship or have a technology that has yet to be implemented. Then when creating your business model, it is also super important that you take a look at parts on where it can be more sustainable. For example, if you're in a shopping mall, you might have cheaper light bulbs, you might have new technologies that can in fact replace electricity uses and make it more sustainable. Last but not the least, road mapping, what is it for the future? And also predicting what might be happening in the future is also important to your ideation. So, Let's have a little recap on the step-by-step approach on how do we generate a new idea. The first step is to always research and to get a better understanding. Second is to dissect your information and filter out what is important and what is not important. Third, you come together as a group, you brainstorm new idea, you try to utilize your team synergy to create something new, and after all, having multiple people criticizing, supporting, evaluating, and researching an idea is super important, and also it is much more efficient and effective. Then you should generate new ideas and be open to new ideas as well as work together to refine your idea. Because what you might not have thought of could have been another person's thought and could have been helped in order to create a better idea. Then you would spend a very gruesome and long period of time to fine-tune your idea and make it as refreshing and new as possible. Last but not the least, you would finalize it and ensure that it is a creative idea. So all in all, I believe that ideation is a long and tiring process. But if you work hard step by step as a team in tiny bits, it can help you accelerate your innovation and at the same time give you a new idea that might be worth considering and more than simply an idea. Thank you very much for watching the session. I hope you enjoy your brainstorm process and do come up with new and creative solutions.